True Vine Publishing Company has been amazing. I just honestly say without them, I would have been all over the place like I was before I even got in contact with them. It's been a pleasure to be able to have that mentor and that coach to walk me through every chapter of the book. And I know for sure without their guidance, it wouldn't have sent out the message that needed to be sent out.
Working with Tim I tell people even to this day, it was one of the best experiences of my life. We're family. It's more than a writer's workshop. It's like a family that wants you to really get everything out that you can to make your project the best project out there. He takes your manuscript as serious as you, almost like it's his. I needed that, and I felt even from the writer's workshop that a lot of people really needed it. He's very passionate about making sure this manuscript is going to be exactly what I want it to be. And it was, and it brought me to tears.
So one of the best things about the True Vine manuscript coaching was Tim's ability to really coach us through getting out of our head and really feeling our words on the paper. He really coached us on telling the story. He always said that we can not only tell the facts, we have to tell the story. Through the coaching process, I was able to add color and life to my words and to make it really relevant to my potential audience. So for any budding authors out there, I 100% recommend True Vine Publishing and the manuscript coaching with Tim Bond.
Hello, this is Timothy Bond with True Vine Publishing Company, and you're watching the next episode of The Right Change, where our guest today is Amere May Sr., author of Courtside Conversations.
This is to all the world changers, keep walking on. Don't you ever lose that fire in your soul. Lose that fire in your soul. This is to all the world changers, you know you are history makers. This world's never gonna change you, 'cause you're gonna change. You're gonna change the world. Yeah, the world.
Hello, Amere. How are you today?
Great. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Like I talked to you earlier, I said I feel bad not calling you Bishop, but we'll stick with Amere. It's good to have you on. First of all, I love to have those who I have had the opportunity to join in your publishing journey on the show, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to promote the message that God has given you. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you for having it. It was your publishing company. You were excellent, and you did it expeditiously with precise, and it was awesome. And I really appreciate it. And it was done with the spirit of excellence. I thank God for Bishop Maynard and the recommendation that he's given us to take this book to the place it needs to be. Awesome. I'm appreciative.
Thank you, sir. You all heard it right here. Bishop Amere May. So, Bishop, give us a little bit about you, a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm originally from Michigan, from South Haven, Michigan. We're the blueberry capital of the world. This is where blueberries discovered and made. And we're right on Lake Michigan. We're about an hour and a half from Chicago and about 2 hours from Detroit. And my grandparents moved from Chicago to Michigan, settled there. And I'm excited about my family, my legacy. And I grew up and matriculated and went to high school there in South Haven, Michigan, and found a love. And it was the game of basketball. And I became quite good at it. And it took me all over the world, the country. I was recruited by 400 schools, and my high school ended up playing in Central Michigan because I knew the assistant coach from Detroit. And from there, just really dominated the game of basketball for a long period of time. I still hold high school records 30 years later. And I'm excited. I'm a husband for 26 years for Kenya May from Chicago, Illinois, with wonderful children and grandchildren. Just had a new addition, and I'm excited about God. I was raised in the Church of God in Christ. Mother's a Supervisor Christine Cunningham Simpson of Michigan Western No. 2, and my grandfather, the late Bishop Fred Cunningham. So I'm excited about the heritage, about the legacy that God has, in my journey that God has taken me on. And now I'm a gospel preacher and travel the world and philanthropist and author. And I just love to make an impact on people's lives. I'm excited about that. And I have a lot to say to young people. I've experienced it from the streets all the way to being a college athlete, the politics of the NBA, was in the NBA draft, played overseas, and the birth of son, Amere May Jr., who was the Six Nation League scorer in the nation. So we know what it takes, and did all the AAU and did some prison time. And after that, God expunged my record. So I'm just excited. I'm just a man of a testator that God is good. And if God is for you, who can be against you?
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot in there that we could dive into, man. To see where God is taking you, where He's brought you from.
Yes.
Wow, I mean, you are currently pastoring in Dubai. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're overseas. We oversee churches in Dubai. We oversee churches in Dubai. I'm currently the senior pastor of Abundant Faith Worship Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we moved about 6 years ago. And God blessed us here. We got our own property, our own land, and God is just doing some wonderful things in my life and in ministry. So yes, and then we cover churches over in Dubai, the UAE, and we're excited about that. We're going back in October. We went last year, and it was an amazing time. And this year we're going back for a missions gathering, and I'm excited about it.
I see another book, Bishop, on taking the gospel into foreign lands.
Yes.
That's like a Muslim country. I mean,
yes, Dubai is definitely United Arab Emirates.
We got another book we need to do. So
yes, sir.
About books, let's talk about the book at hand, Courtside Conversations. Tell us a little bit.
Courtside Conversation is a conversation that you would have in the locker room talk. It would be a conversation you would have in the barbershop. It's a conversation you have during the family barbecues at the round table eating dinner. It's a conversation about not particularly just the game of basketball, but the game of life. And just having a conversation outside of the parameters in which you're comfortable in or your work job. So it's mainly teaching athletes how to be victorious even in a losing season. Everybody teaches us how to win, but few people teach us how to lose. One of the great athletes, if you notice the difference between Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, myself, whoever, they know how to recover from a loss. Michael Jordan lost his father, and then after that, he won another championship. Magic Johnson attracted the HIV virus, and from that, he became the face of the disease. You see, Mike Tyson have suffered many losses, but however, he came back, revitalized himself, and became a champion. So many athletes are dealing with depression, they're dealing with suicidal thoughts, they're dealing with drugs, they turn to the streets, they're trying to cope with this mechanism. How can I stay that guy? I'm no longer that guy in the social field, and I don't have that dopamine to make me feel like I'm some type of Greek god. And then when the stands are empty and the lights are off, who can I turn to? And God is ultimately our source. And so they go to other sources, and I've tried to provide them with resources how to be victorious in a losing season. Even in the Bible, I know this is not geared to Christian, but the truth of the matter, David lost the Ark of the Covenant. And it was his season of moaning and season of weeping. He had to regather himself, recover. And then God told him, you should recover all. So even though the game is over, your life is not over. But so many times we put so much strenuous time into our bodies, into our mind. We train for this one moment. And the moment doesn't turn out the way we expect it to be. And we get cut, we may get injured, we may have a divorce, or life hit us. And when life hits us, the game, sometimes it snatches the game away. And we have to have some type of mechanisms or coping mechanism that we can embellish our lives and not get stuck there.
Mm-hmm. What was the impetus or the motivation to write this book at this time?
Well, my own experiences, my own dealing with depression and dealing with alcoholism and going through that phase of not longer, the game is not there. Seeing my son who walked away after the Bulls signed him to the Summer League and Golden State Warriors and, drafted him, Cleveland drafted him, and seeing him walking away because he had a heart murmur and just seeing how the game, he revitalized himself. He never let the game stop him. He moved on. I was in a 10-year drought, just trying to recover, because when you're from a smaller city, people put false burdens on you, and they tell you, you're the man, you should have did this, you should have did that. And the only reason they say that, applying this pressure, not understand they're really doing you more harm than good, is so they can benefit. And then you look around and say, well, why you didn't do this with your life? Right. And but they put unnecessary pressure on athletes. Family does. I know the black family we do. What you want to do? You're gonna be an NBA player. I guess if you're 6'6", they automatically think you're gonna be an NBA player or NFL player. And consequently, we put unnecessary burdens and pressures and false burdens on our children to become something that chances are they're not going to become. It's amazing. I was cited in the book among 127,000 female high school senior basketball players, only 32 or 0.2% will have the chance to be drafted. And though there's chances, no matter how good you are, even somebody that's good is going to get cut. I tell people all the time, the NBA is not full of the world's best basketball players. Simultaneously, about 30 of them are the best. But the rest of them, they came from the right school. They knew the right person. And, you know, my son averaged almost 20-some points a game in Division I. But for a GM, the game of basketball is like chess. They would take a guy from Duke that averaged 8 points, who's an All-American, because it sells tickets. They don't really care about your performance. They care about who you're performing with and how you're doing it. But you got to know all the in and out. Most people don't know that, and they apply this pressure, and they just think you didn't make it because you weren't good enough. That's not necessarily the case. And so what do you do when you're good enough and you still get cut? What do you do when you're good enough and don't get the job? So it just goes beyond the parameters of being an athlete. It goes without saying, for a job or suffering of loss. We've been in COVID for 2 years, and a lot of us have suffered losses from loved ones, have transitioned. And how do you deal with this mechanism? How do you cope with it? Depression is real. Anxiety is real. And they are not going away. We often love saying we plan for our life. What do you want to be? Oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. But we never ask the question, what are you going to do when this person dies? We never ask the real hard question. What are you going to do when your parents are not here? What do you do if you go to the divorce? What are you going to do if this happens? And no one never asks us the question that causes us to lose. And so for that reason, I wrote this book.
One thing I love about your, just when I heard you speak, you have a very practical approach to life. You know,
yes,
you don't get into the religiosity of it, like everything is God. Oh, my toe hurts. That's the devil. No, you know what you said. You talked about health in one sermon or one speech I heard. And you're like, everything ain't the devil. You just need to quit eating. And I was like, this is the kind of teaching I like. You could have really approached this message of grief and overcoming from, you know, a more broad stance. What was it that made you really say, I'm going to talk to the athletes?
Well, so many athletes are bleeding. Because we don't even talk about grief ends when we have gotten past the acute need for the lost person or thing that we lost. Even with our ministries, everybody wants to say, okay, let's do a back to school, let's do a book bag, let's do a book bag giveaway. Until one day I was like, no, wait a minute. My wife is an educator, she's a teacher, she's matriculating, trying to obtain her PhD. And my whole family, we push education. I said, wait a minute, why are we buying books for young people that can't even read?
Wow.
Book bags. Let's get a literacy program. Yeah. Our way of thinking and concerning the mission of the church is always to the needy. It's always. No one wants to reach out to the rich. And those influential people, they need God more than anybody else. You don't realize, and this may sound very funny, oxymoronic, but usually the middle class and those that are without lives are more peaceful and blessed than those that are multimillionaires. All right, it's a whole nother level of demons that they deal with, a whole other level of access to the devil's camp that they have to deal with. Everybody's at them. They don't know who they can trust. They don't know who they can turn to. So I was led to write this to give them some type of mechanism and cope to let them know, yes, I'm the superficial athlete. I can run a 440 in this amount of time. I can jump. I got a 43-inch vertical. But at the end of the day, when I go home, I'm just normal. And so I need something to feed my mind. I need something to feed my spirit. I need something to refresh me, because everybody is talking about, you know, when you're a millionaire, everybody coming at you. You gain 10 folks you didn't know you had. Right. You get aunties you didn't know was never exist, and everybody's at you, so you don't know who you can trust. And so I wanted to write something, a pamphlet or a memoir that they can study by and they can get them through the places they need to be.
Have you had a chance to talk to athletes on this issue? Or?
Yes, I've been talking to athletes. We get things together, working on an endorsement from the NFL and the NBA and the NHL. Major League Baseball, I've been corresponding with Magic Johnson, who owns the LA Dodgers and works with the LA Lakers. So we're trying to do some big things. I'm not going after the normal quote unquote church crowd, even though this book will benefit the church, but I'm going after a different segment of people because there's a lingo that athletes have. Athletes don't have athletic hurt. You know, y'all have church hurt. Somebody offend you, called you this, called you get church hurt, and then all of a sudden the Lord is speaking to you. You got to move. Athletes are direct. Athletes are, listen, if you're too fat, you're too fat. You're getting cut. I mean, you're just overweight. It ain't no, well, please lose 2 pounds and come back. No, you cut. You wasn't ready. And so we just dealing with this, and it's everything's upfront and truthful, and you know what you're getting. So I think this book is going to be really a blessing to so many athletes because so many athletes are grieving. So many athletes are grieving, and I tell you, it's just something that every owner. I'm pitching this idea to the Charlotte Hornets, to the Panthers, to the Dallas Cowboys, just to get this book in their preseason teaching, to help them in preseason training, because somebody's going to get cut. And we just don't want to turn you out there and turn you over and get drinking and driving, drug charges. You know, some people ask, why do so many athletes do so much crazy, immature things? Like, they have so much pressure on them. And without the gift of God and the gift of the Holy Spirit, your money is nothing. Because what profit a man to gain the whole world is. So you need some type of substance with that gift so God can carry you through.
Let me ask you this, Amere. You can see how uncomfortable I am. Let me ask you this, Bishop. So we live in a time, and I'm not a sports person, but I believe when our young, especially young black men, they have the talent, right?
Yes.
Everyone is pushing them towards that. Get grades. We'll do the homework for you. When you have someone like that and they get to the big show and they're turned away, how do you help that person? Not just with the grief, but how do you help that person find life beyond sports?
And this is what the book is all about. That's the substratum, the undergirding of the book, because you know I remember a time when I had the flu. They told me to stay at home and get a well, but make sure you're at the school by 6 so you can play tonight. They didn't even care if I went to school.
Wow.
And sometimes we had, I remember my freshman class, they wanted to make sure all of us was, our parents were, my mother was educated, but my father was a hard worker, come out, the GM era, worked at a factory, and they wasn't as knowledgeable as I am, that I was able to be afforded for what my kids and my children. I had to make sure they had 4 English, 4 science, 4 math, all that kind of stuff, their core grades and all that. When I got to Central, they wanted to make sure we were eligible. And one of the classes they gave me, I'll never forget, was bowling. They gave me a class just to make sure that A would help that math grade come up to, if I got a C in math, to make sure it was B. So they play these games with you. It's almost like they don't care anything about you. That's why you love great coaches like Bobby Knights and the Coach K's, and a lot of these HBCU schools are good because HBCU school cares about the welfare of their student athletes, because they know they're not, probably chances are they're not going to the NBA, they're not going to the NFL, but they look at them socially, spiritually, and holistically. That's one of the benefits that when I went to Shaw University, it was like a family. When my son went to North Carolina A&T, he was Mr. A&T. And then my other son went to Delaware State. It was more like a family because these coaches would come in, they would dangle this stuff before you, and the programs would dangle this stuff before you. And then all of a sudden, if you get hurt, sometimes they throw you away. That's why, to all parents who will watch this and listen to me, if you have a good athletic son that has the ability to be a great athlete, to be a professional, whatever that coach begins to promise him on that recruiting moment or the recruiting time, to visit you to home or they visit the college campus, if they begin to make you all these promises, chances are that's not a good fit for your son. The first thing they should be talking about is the graduation rate of that particular team. We graduate 75% of our players. We graduate 80% of our players. Those are the type of conversations that you needed to be attained and listened to and entertained. You don't need to listen, we can make him an All-American. He can go to the NBA. This will be a great fit. And we're going to surround the offense by him. No, because then you have made it about basketball. And I only can play basketball for so long. Let's make it about education and spiritualization that can be able to keep me when I'm 80 and 90 years old. So those are kind of things, a little nuggets that parents need to really realize, and it's in the book.
Bishop, here on The Right Change, we love to talk about the author's books, but we also want to reach aspiring writers as well who want to reach the level that you've reached. And so we always ask all of our guests, if you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring writer to get to this point of having that book in hand, what advice would you give them?
I would say be yourself. Whatever made you cry, write it down. Whatever made you laugh, write it down. Whatever impacts your life, write it down. Because you will find out you're not the only one. And when you have reached your audience through transparency, then you're growing a global concept. But trying to be someone else, trying to write someone like someone else. I was thinking about the favor of Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey he didn't graduate from school. And if you love Steve Harvey, we know we love Uncle Steve. But Steve breaks adjectives, verbs, he does everything. Right. But he's himself.
Right.
And he doesn't change. And because he has connected with the people that can identify with him, you see where he is today. And so I make sure you're very transparent. Make sure you write your life's pain on paper because you went through to help someone else out. And be very transparent. You don't have to tell all the details, but share your heart and paint it. And I think, and then you get it, good publicists like yourself and a great company and take it to the place it's supposed to be.
I love that advice. Usually people say, do it afraid, but that's the first of, that transparency. And you're completely 100% correct. I don't read a book to be made to feel like I'm only going to give you so much information, right?
Right.
Look, that means you let me into your life, so don't hold back now,
Right.
How can people get in contact with you, Bishop?
Well, they can visit me on my website, www.ameremay.org. And just get in contact with me, email Amere May Sr. at Gmail. And I'd love to come to your high school. I'm setting up a high school tour, college tour for next year and this year. And I'd love to come to your churches, of course. We can make you very excited and pack your life on Sunday. But if you really want to change, bring me to a seminar. And if you really want, and let's have a conversation. When we have a conversation, it's more effective than me just preaching at you. But we will preach to you, but I'm just saying to have a conversation be more effective.
Bishop, thank you for being on the show. Everyone, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Let's get the word out about Amere May Sr. and his book, Courtside Conversations. You can follow us on YouTube at True Vine University. You can follow us on Facebook at The Right Change Podcast, and you can follow us on any audio podcast platform, and you can see every episode of The Right Change at therightchange.com. Bishop, I appreciate you again. Thank you for your time. I know
Thank you, sir.
Headed to another country in the next 10 minutes. So you have a wonderful day, and thank you again.
You too. Thank you.